Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to trace the fascinating and honestly pretty intense historical evolution of justice. We'll be looking through the lens of three highly influential ancient texts to really fundamentally understand how we punish wrongdoers in society, and maybe, most importantly, why we do it. So if you've ever wondered about the philosophical roots of our modern legal systems, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's just dive right in with a massive question, one that philosophers and lawmakers have literally debated for centuries. What is the actual goal when a society penalizes someone? Are we trying to balance some cosmic scale? Are we trying to fix the person? Or, are we just seeking revenge? This really isn't just an abstract thought experiment. How we answer this question shapes pretty much everything about our justice system. Well, to answer that, we've got to look at what we call the aims of punishment. These are basically the underlying philosophical goals and purposes behind penalizing an individual for wrongdoing. It's a core concept linked to some really intense modern debates on things like capital punishment. And by examining these ancient texts, we can clearly see how these foundational ideas have drastically shifted over time. Okay, so we're going to track this chronological arc today, starting with Era 1 in Genesis, focusing on creation and life, moving right along to Era 2 in Exodus for retribution, and finally landing on Era 3 in the book of Matthew for rehabilitation. Section 1. Genesis, the ultimate retribution. Let's start at the very beginning. Right, so Genesis 9 establishes this incredibly strict one-to-one rule. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. But what does this actually mean in practice? It establishes exact, fatal reciprocity. It means that if someone has killed another person, they themselves should be killed. It's a perfectly reciprocal consequence for the ultimate crime. No wiggle room. Now, you might be wondering, why is this punishment so absolutely severe? Well, it all comes down to the sanctity of life. Because all life is created by God and bears His image, human life is considered totally sacred. Therefore, taking a life demands the absolute ultimate penalty, and this specific reasoning sets the earliest historical stage for capital punishment. Section 2. Exodus, proportional retribution. Let's move to our next era and see how this evolves. This brings us to one of the most famous phrases in human history. Seriously, everyone knows this one. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. This brilliantly illustrates a system of exact proportional justice. What this quote actually means is that if someone does something to harm you, they should experience that exact same harm done back to them. No more, no less. So the crucial point we're looking at here is the formal concept of retribution. Retribution is the aim of punishment where the offender experiences the exact same consequence they inflicted on their victim. It gives society this very strict, almost mathematical approach to balancing the scales of justice. If you take a tooth, you lose a tooth. It's just a totally literal interpretation of making things even. Section 3. The rehabilitative shift. Fast forward a few centuries, and things change. Centuries later, we hit a massive philosophical turning point. It's almost like a radical software update to that ancient moral code we just talked about. Matthew explicitly references the old Exodus law, saying, "You have heard that it was said, eye for eye," but then completely flips the script by teaching, "Do not resist an evil person, and turn to them the other cheek." This text teaches that we should absolutely not seek revenge. The meaning here is super clear. Two wrongs don't make a right. It fundamentally updates the teaching, basically suggesting that a person will ultimately receive their punishment from God, not from human retaliation. And that right there brings us to an incredibly profound new aim of punishment: rehabilitation. This was a radically countercultural approach to justice at the time. By moving away from human-led revenge, literally turning the other cheek, the whole focus shifts. It opens the door to reform, letting go of the need for proportional physical payback, and leaving the ultimate judgment and punishment to God. Looking at these side by side, it's a total philosophical clash, right? On one side, we have the visceral, physical payback of the Old Testament, eye for an eye, representing strict retribution. And on the other side, the radical forgiveness and non-retaliation of the New Testament, turn the other cheek, representing the seeds of rehabilitation. It is a complete paradigm shift in how human beings are instructed to handle wrongdoing. Section 4, retribution versus rehabilitation. Let's pull all this together. This really sums up the whole evolutionary journey perfectly. We started with Genesis, where the sanctity of life meant that killers should be killed because humans are made in God's image. Then we evolved into Exodus, where retribution demanded you experience the exact same harm you caused. And finally, Matthew introduced rehabilitation, instructing us to not seek revenge and to turn the other cheek instead. So, what is the ultimate takeaway from this explainer? Well, it's that these aren't just dusty old quotes. The progression from the sacredness of life demanding the ultimate penalty, to proportional retribution, and finally to the rejection of revenge in favor of rehabilitation, these three specific ancient texts still deeply underpin our modern debates regarding capital punishment and the true aims of a justice system today. Our current laws are literally still wrestling with these exact same concepts. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought and question to ponder. Thousands of years after these texts were written, which of these two approaches do you believe actually brings about true justice today? Is a society better served by strict, proportional retribution, or by a system focused on non-retaliation and rehabilitation? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating evolution of justice with me today.